Hello and welcome everyone to another video. Today we're going to do something a little different. This time we're not going to talk about a climbing Philodendron or a Monstera type. Today we're going to talk about Philodendron Plowmanii. Philodendron Plowmanii is a crawling philodendron, as you call them. Philodendron are either crawling or they're climbing, and Plowmanii is definitely a crawler. So what is a crawling philodendron? A crawling philodendron is one that has a stem that is crawling and creeping on the ground. They can certainly grow upwards, but their natural growth is horizontally. The more mature they get, they definitely will grow horizontally. Sometimes if they're more juvenile, they might grow upwards, but their general growth habit is creeping on the ground. So I'm going to show you these Philodendron Plowmanii, and you can see it has beautiful heart-shaped leaves. Also, they have ruffles on the backside. Their veining is a little bit red and reddish in color. They're often confused with Philodendron Mamai, but this here is certainly Plowmanii. I think one of the most striking differences is, and it's hard to show you here, are the ruffles on the stem and also the red veining. I'll just try to show you again. The red veining here are clear indicators that we have a Philodendron Plowmanii here. Well, let's look at the care for Philodendron Plowmanii. Let's start with soil. As with most aroids, Philodendron Plowmanii prefers a well-draining soil. Well-draining is a soil where water is draining out quickly. So if you water it, you should see water draining out of the pot within a couple of seconds. This is a great indicator that your potting soil is well-draining. In terms of potting soil, what works great is chunky bits such as charcoal, orchid bark, perlite, pumice. These kind of substrates or a mix of these substrates actually work great. It shouldn't be too grainy because Philodendron Plowmanii has really small reddish roots, and it would be harder for Plowmanii to set in a very chunky soil, but it should be a little bit chunky so water is draining well. Well, so much about soil. Let's move on to lighting. There's no surprise here with Philodendron Plowmanii. They prefer bright indirect light. So as I've been talking about this in the past, it's light that is not shining directly onto the leaves. A couple of hours, 3 to 4 hours in the morning time would be fine. But in general, like, they should have bright indirect light throughout the day. So east and west facing windows are suited. I'm using grow lights, especially in winter time, so it doesn't really matter where the plant is placed, as long as you provide bright indirect light. And of course with grow lights they will be direct, but that's fine as long as they're not too strong. So much about light. Let's move on to temperature. So the ideal temperature for Philodendron Plowmanii is 55 to 83 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 12 to 31 degrees Celsius. And it's important to mention that 55 degrees Fahrenheit is really low. That's actually the minimum temperature, and you should have a temperature way higher than that for your Philodendron Plowmanii to be happy. Optimal are at least 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which equals to about 18 degrees Celsius. That temperature, your plant will be absolutely fine and happy. Just avoid the extremes like really high and really low temperatures, as this might hurt your Philodendron Plowmanii and also stunt its growth. All right, let's talk about humidity. Philodendron Plowmanii is a humidity lover. No surprise here again. The higher the humidity, the better. I usually say about 50, or in this case even 60% humidity is great, because it will really foster nice growth. It will provide all the conditions big and nice foliage needs. So try to get to 60% humidity. You can always use a humidifier, as I'm doing, or an enclosed environment where it's really easy to keep such high humidity levels. All right, so much about humidity. So let's talk about propagation. This is a great subject when talking about Philodendron Plowmanii. because all these crawling philodendron are really, really easy to propagate. And I'm gonna tell you in a second why this is the case. Let's just first have a look at the growth habit. It's really difficult to show you right here, but as you might see, Philodendron Plowmanii is starting to crawl here. This is actually the remaining Plowmanii because I've cut it several times already, and it will start to crawl until it reaches the end of the pot. So how do you propagate Philodendron Plowmanii? It's very easy. You can just cut different sections. What you need, as always, is a node. You need at least one node. But the really good thing about crawling philodendron is that they are rooting along the way. So the stem is already on the ground, is rooting, like for every section is rooting. So when you cut off a section with Philodendron Plowmanii, when you cut off a node, most likely it is already rooted into the ground. So when you do the cutting, you most likely already have roots with it. So it's almost as if you had air layered your cutting. So this way it will be easy to propagate Philodendron Plowmanii. Also, there's a big question, like if you have leaves on it, you will certainly have as it crawls along. Should you leave them on the plant or not, or on the cutting or not? I usually leave them on the cutting, but it's sometimes difficult that they survive because you have limited roots, and also your Philodendron Plowmanii doesn't have so many nutrients to make sure that the leaf survives. So oftentimes the leaf will die off, but that's no problem because what you're looking for is additional root growth and also a new shoot to start. So if the leaf stays on, that's fine. If not, it's not a big deal. What you can do is to put it in an enclosed box with really high humidity, or also you can put a plastic bag on top of your leaf. This way, the chances are increased that the leaf is going to survive. Oftentimes, you will also need some kind of wooden stick, or any plastic stick to just keep the leaf upright. The stability is going to be really low when you have a cutting, so the leaf stays upright. But as said, you can even do it without the leaf. That's no problem at all. All right, let's talk about growth. I've already talked about growth a bit. Philodendron Plowmanii is a crawling philodendron, so they will crawl along the floor or the ground, or in this case, a pot. And also, what is important to know is that the stem will grow thicker and thicker the more the Plowmanii is growing, and also the more roots it can set into the ground. So if your Plowmanii is getting overboard and crawling out, your stems are not going to get thicker, and there's a big chance that the leaves are not going to grow bigger because they need stability. And so you want to have it grow in the pot as much as possible. The cool thing about Plowmanii is that it can get really huge leaves. These ones are quite juvenile and small, but you will see a big leaf increase as the plant is growing and growing. So it's really great to see how this plant grows. Let's move on to potting, a very important topic when talking about crawling philodendron. As you can see, the pot I'm using here is longish and lengthy, and it's not round at all. This is because we're dealing with a crawler here, and they're crawling quite quickly and get very long. And with a round pot, they would get out of the pot in an instant. So the longer the pot, the better for Philodendron Plowmanii. They're quite hard to come by, longish pots. Often these kind of pots are more for outside potting, but you can use them as well. Or I'm using here a Lechuza planter. This one is really great for growing a crawling philodendron. I will link it in the description in case you're interested. I'm not sponsored in any way, but these work really, really good for Philodendron Plowmanii. Fertilizer. When we talk about crawling philodendron, what I'm usually using is a slow release fertilizer because it's very easy to just put it in the ground. Usually they will last for 3 to 6 months. They're often like little balls that you put into the ground, and they will provide nutrients over an extended period. And this just works great for crawling philodendron. Of course, you could also use a liquid fertilizer. That works as well. But for me, like a slow release fertilizer is great. You don't need anything special. Regular houseplant fertilizer. Use a balanced fertilizer with an NPK of 10-10-10, 20-20-20 or 5-5-5. These kind of fertilizers work great. I fertilize every 3 to 6 months, as I mentioned, because I'm using slow release fertilizer. If you're using a liquid fertilizer, you can fertilize every 2 to 4 weeks in spring and summer. Again, these plants or houseplants in general, all the plants, I think, for that matter, are growing slower in autumn and winter. Therefore, you don't need to fertilize, or you just reduce fertilization maybe every 2 or 3 months if you really want to mainly fertilize in the growing season. Hold on, I almost forgot one really important topic, which is watering. So, how do you water Philodendron Plowmanii? I water Philodendron Plowmanii about once a week. And as always with these general suggestions, they are just general suggestions. It really depends on the soil you're using, on the humidity, the temperature, generally the environment, the size of the plant, the size of the roots, the size of the pot. All these factors are going to influence how much and how often you have to water your Philodendron Plowmanii. But I would say, as a general rule of thumb, water your Plowmanii about once a week. They like to be a little bit on the humid side, so make sure that the potting soil is slightly moist at all times. But if I say moist, I don't mean soggy or like really wet. So slightly moist is perfect for the Plowmanii. They're not drought tolerant, so it should never be completely dry. They don't take that really well. They love to grow under humid conditions. And as long as you have well-draining soil, there's nothing to fear in terms of overwatering and things like that. They're not going to happen if you have well-draining soil, and also if you're using a planter with drainage holes. So yeah, water about once a week. I use general tap water. Tap water is just fine. Reverse osmosis, rainwater, distilled water, all these water types would be superior because they have less chlorines and less pollutants in them, but tap water is just fine. So you can use that if you have no other option or alternative. Yeah, I think that sums it up in terms of watering. Yeah, well, one thing I need to mention is this kind of pot I'm using is a self-watering pot. So here I only water every 3 to 4 weeks, but I also have a lot of Plowmanii in aeroid soil and other soil types with drainage holes, and the pots have drainage holes at the bottom, and this is with these pots I water once a week. Yeah, if you like this video, please subscribe to our channel so you will be notified when other videos are coming out. Like the video, we would really appreciate that, and also leave a comment in the comment section. All these signals are important for the YouTube algorithm, and it will surface our videos more. We will be more motivated to record more videos, and your benefit is that there's many more videos coming, and they will surface and you will see them. So thank you so much for your support and watching, and see you soon with another episode. Bye everyone. Take care.